What's up, everyone? Aaron Negler here, Cheesehead TV, talking to Andy Herman, the Don of the Pack-A-Day podcast and purveyor of fine Packers takes, where I digest your Packers news. After the Packers clinch the NFC North against the Detroit Lions, Andy, let's talk some football. Let's talk Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, seemingly just on another level / planet / plane of existence. The back shoulder obviously is going to get the headlines and going to make the rounds, so to speak. But I just thought whenever they wanted something, they could take it.
Yeah, I don't have anything else really to add. Like, it's been so ridiculously fun, and it's just one of those connections where you just stop and you don't even, who cares about the analysis? Who cares about the stats? Like, just literally one of those where just sit back and enjoy the hell out of it because, as much as we hate to think about it, Aaron Rodgers is 37. Davante Adams is in literally the prime of his career right now, and these things go, through the middle of the night before you know it, and they're gone. So enjoy the hell out of it. That's not meant to be negative. That's just meant to be, to take a pause.
Appreciation.
And
no doubt about it.
Because, what Adams is doing right now is just, I think you wrote about MVS in your gut reactions about being a God mode catch, but he's just in God mode period right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do against him. You can't go zone, you can't go man, you can't go press, you can't go off, unless you're going to start getting to Megatron levels where you literally just take two corners and bracket them. And I don't think
we will. I actually think we'll start seeing that at some point.
Seriously.
Because look, if you want to be any way, shape, or form serious about stopping the Green Bay Packers offense, obviously pick your poison is understatement, so to speak, when it comes to trying to make them beat you any other way other than Davante Adams. And to me, I think they're going to have to not just roll guys to him, which we have seen teams do, but I do think he'll start to get Megatron-like treatment, especially maybe not in the regular season, but especially in the playoffs when it's like one play can absolutely wreck your game. I got to think they're going to make other guys beat them. Now, I do think Aaron Jones, MVS, Tunyon, etc., are up to that task. But if I'm a defensive coordinator, how do you not try and die that way rather than what we saw yesterday, where it's like you just a flick of the wrist and it's all of a sudden he's to the house.
Yeah, and then, you just add in Aaron Rodgers', improvisational ability when he needs it. He hasn't needed it all that often, but you add that, Adams' ability to uncover at the top of routes, and it just becomes so ridiculously hard to defend. And, kudos to you. Take a bow because you've been
easy now.
The captain of the train of Green Bay doesn't need another receiver. And you were 1,000,000% spot on. And I think it's fair to say at this point, I think, we've talked about, when MVS moves up to that number 2 wide receiver, it might still be a little bit of a steep curve for him. But when he slots into that number 3 and Lazard's in 2 and EQ is in 4 and Tavon's in 5. And, oh yeah, by the way, Davante's in 1. Plus you've got Tunyon at tight end, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Like, they have enough weapons to rule the world right now. And there's teams that are eventually going to take away Davante, and Lazard and MVS and Tunyon are going to have to be up to the task in that situation, but they've shown nothing but the ability to do so. So kudos to you for pointing that out for the last year plus.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it counts and depends on guys actually developing, which is obviously happening somewhat. To me, the interesting thing yesterday, I wanted to get a second question into Matt, didn't get the opportunity to. You try this afternoon, was the idea of Allen Lazard has obviously killed the Lions the last, X number of games. I do wonder if they were paying any kind of attention to him. I mean, that sounds weird to say, but you think about, just the first game where he kind of burst into the national consciousness on that nationally televised game, night game, etc., when Aaron Rodgers goes to him and then it's incomplete, and then he goes to him again for the touchdown. That's him bursting on the scene, right? And then there's the ridiculous touchdown he has last year in week 17 up the seam. And then you go to this game on Sunday, and I almost felt like they were not more worried about Lazard than MVS, but it sure looked like Rodgers was much more comfortable going to the single cover guy, which was MVS more often than not. I mean, Lazard had 3 targets on the day, and MVS had 6. So I just got to think that's the way the coverage was rolling. And to me, that suggests that they were, again, I don't think the game plan was to stop Allen Lazard, but I got to think they were at least aware of how much he's hurt them. The last few times
it could be that, but I think the other thing too is what MVS had 2 targets the last 2 weeks combined, right? Like, it's getting to the point where there's just there's so many options on this offense. Like, it's getting tough to get Aaron Jones carries. It's getting tough to get Robert Tonyan touches. It's getting tough to get Alan Lazard. Like, there's only so many touches to go around. And if you're Aaron Rodgers, it's got to be, I mean, it's a pleasant surprise, but it's got to be somewhat difficult to try to figure out, how do I get all these guys involved? Big Dog has another catch yesterday. Like, there's just, there's open options seemingly on every single play. And, yesterday wasn't Allen's game, and the 2 games before that weren't MVS's game. But I just think that there's enough, mouths to feed that it's getting tougher and tougher to do that all in one game.
Somebody we haven't even touched on, probably because he only had 1 catch, but I thought it was telling the way that he caught it and the way he was targeted. Aaron Rodgers on the opening drive breaks contain, something like you just mentioned. He hasn't had to do a lot of improvisation. He hasn't had to do a lot of escape the pocket, make something happen outside the pocket, etc. But on this play, he escapes to his right, and he's looking, and he hits EQ for a first down, a sizable gain, and it's almost identical to a play against the Vikings that he dropped a few weeks ago. But Rodgers is there, comfortable, and it's just, we need a first down. Here's a guy we won't literally throw to for the rest of the game, but right now, right here, I'm going to make this throw, and it's going to be fine. We're going to get a first down. We're going to keep moving. To that end, it's like, this is the offense as far as development goes, that, they're scoring 40 points a game in the first month, and then they hit not a lull, but a bit of a valley, right? As they're getting injured and they're trying to make pieces work. Now they got people all on the same page. Man, just forget it. It's a wrap. I mean, it's funny because they can't even pick apart. Like, the one thing you could probably say yesterday about, if you want to be kind of critical, is the run game, in the sense that it was very clear that they wanted to make things happen between the tackles, and they just couldn't.
And let me ask you this too. Right. I can't think of a single time in my time, watching Packers football. Let's just talk about the offense right now. Right. Where there's not a single player where people are saying, cut that guy. He's no good. Get him out of here. Like, there's not a single foul. MVS has certainly had a couple moments.
He's been that lightning rod at times. But at the moment, no.
If that's your worst, if MVS is your worst, the guy that you're like, well, we got to do something with him, like, you are in a very good spot.
Right.
Like, that is ridiculous. And I can't remember a time, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, for my 30 years of watching this, of a team that hasn't had one player where you're like, well, that guy's got to be gone next year because he's terrible. Like, they don't have that guy, and it's insane.
Well, it's funny, too, if you think about who that was last year on the offense. It was probably Billy Turner, who's now turned around and put together an excellent year at, like, 3 different positions.
Maybe Gmo, too. Gmo would be the other one.
Oh, I mean, obviously.
And Jimmy Graham.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's a perfect point, though. It's the sense of, like, every one of the 11, as Matt likes to say, 1/11th, everyone's doing it. Everyone's got a role. Everyone knows what their role is. Everyone's stepping up when called upon. That's scary for a defensive coordinator. And look, I still think they're not holding back, but I think they've got more that they can do as far as from a scheme standpoint, because it is funny how you see other teams really scheme things up, and the Packers seem to be not content, but they do seem to be still a little bit kind of buttoned up. And that feels weird to say for a team scoring 31 points, but it's not like they're doing a ton of scheme to get guys open. Like yesterday, you saw back shoulder throws. You saw a few slants. You saw, the stuff to Tavon Austin was about the biggest quote unquote wrinkle you might, even that is pretty basic for this offense. But we've seen that they can scheme guys open. We've seen them do the bunch sets with crossers. We've seen them do, the 4th down arrow route for a first down against Atlanta. Like, we've seen some stuff where they can really scheme it up, but they haven't needed to. And I think, this is total guesswork on my part, but I tend to think they're probably saving it for the stretch / the playoffs.
Well, go back to that Seattle game where they ran that, where they were going to do the crossers with Devontae Adams, and then they cut it off, and both guys end up wide open, and Rodgers hits Adams. Like, they'll have things up their sleeve. Exactly. I think San Francisco started so poorly that they never got an opportunity to go to some of it, unfortunately. But I think they're going to have more than enough ammunition. And to your point, I also think it's to the point right now where, until people stop some of the basic stuff that they're doing, why even get complicated and complex? Like, they're doing some of the same thing where there's the 3 receivers to the side, and it's either handoff or, bubble screen to the outside. Like, some of it's just basic, football 101. And until teams are able to stop what Green Bay's doing, don't stop doing it.
Right. 1,000%. All right. We got to flip around now. Got to talk about the defense. Man, you know, I tried yesterday. I told Corey, and he kept making fun of me, but I thought I did a pretty good job of being zen, just trying a new zen approach when the defense is on the field, which becomes difficult when they keep giving up these long ass drives to open games. Like we saw it against Philly. That one stalled, but they did score 3 points. They did it against Stafford yesterday, opening drive. It sure looked like, you talk about scheming things up. It sure seemed like this was Darrell Bevel's Super Bowl. Like whether it's the fake bubble screen, cross to Sanu, he threw, what did they run? Like 10 screens, I think, throughout the game. Seriously. It was crazy how he was just pulling out the stops as far as trying to get false steps, trying to get the eyes in the wrong place, etc. And for the most part, it kind of worked. So I understand it. I look at the statistics and I think, a lot of Packer fans are coming around to this, and I see a team that is ranked pretty well, top half. I understand they're not dominant, but a bordering on top 10 defense. What do you think? Can a bordering on top 10 defense get this team to the Super Bowl?
Here's the thing, and I think everyone knows this and feels this. It feels way worse than that. And then I wrote about this for Packer Report. This is the same formula that we have seen in every win this season for the most part. Maybe there's a couple nuances here and there, but dominant offense, defense that makes you pull your hair out at times, but then you go back and look at the stat sheet at the end and you're like, oh, I guess it wasn't that bad, but it still felt really bad. And then a special teams that's going to have their own special blend of terrible moments that are going to make you pull your hair out. And then the one consistent, Mason Crosby, doing what he does best and not missing field goals. Like, it's the same formula we've seen in every single game. And again, to your point, when you go back and look at the defense, like, they allowed less than 300 yards. They got 4 sacks. Like, there's certain points where you look at, there was a 5-drive period in the middle of the game where they allowed 1 touchdown and held them scoreless on the other 4 drives when the game was really in the balance. And you're like, okay, you can start building on this. And then 28-14, and there's a big play, 28-14, Packers are up. They just go up 2 touchdowns. It's 3rd and whatever. And Marvin Jones makes a big catch against Kevin King, and Kevin King's right on him and almost knocks the ball down. And they're deep in their own territory. And if he's just able to get that out on a contested catch, they probably punt, and Green Bay potentially goes up 3 scores, and it's probably all she wrote. But it's just those plays they can't just get over the hump and just get the game done with and have that killer instinct. So it's been tough, but it's the same formula every single game. It's
funny you say that, because you want to say that's not sustainable, but it is, because that's literally, like you say, what they've done all year. So I guess it is sustainable. I don't know. It is interesting. It's the little things to me. There's one play in that game that is the epitome of what coaches and some players talk about when they say, guys doing too much or trying to do too much and not just doing their job.
I'm trying to predict which play you're going to think, but I can't think of one.
The screen pass when it's 1st and 15, the Lions are backed up in their own end. They have a false start penalty, or no, I think it was a holding. So something that pushes them back. So it's a 1st and 15.
Yep.
And they throw a screen to Swift. And I think it's Redmond on the television copy. He doesn't ever turn his back, so I can't quite see what the numbers are, but I think it's Redmond. Bolts down, reads it well, great instinct, totally reads the play correctly, and is in perfect position. If he just turns and walls off the blocker, there's a lineman out there. Sure, it's a screen pass, etc. I get it, but he breaks down in space as though he's going to take on the running back rather than first man there. Just turn it back to your help, man. Yeah. If he just does that, it's probably a 4-yard gain, maybe a 3-yard gain. But instead, because he's the first man there, the blocker, he breaks down as though he's going to tackle the guy. Blocker washes him out, and Swift just goes right around the right end for like 15 yards and a first down. Yeah. And that is like encapsulating the picture perfect example of a guy trying to do too much. Just turn him back in, and you've made the play. And it's funny because to me, those are the plays you're talking about, like pulling your hair out. This team has so many different guys in and out and in and out. And I know they were, their first game without Raven Green. They're trying to mix and match people with certain sub packages. But I do think that kind of play is what you get as a result sometimes. Guys who maybe don't have a ton of reps in that position against that kind of play. So, it's causing, ruptions, so to speak. And I think that has come into the defensive side of the ball's play way more than it should.
And I think, to our point earlier about the offense, finding their rhythm and knowing their formula and knowing what they do well and not having to change it. Yeah, you almost can see the Packers defense just thinking out there and try to figure out.
Yeah.
Mike Pettin brought more pressure yesterday, at least according to Ben Fennell, who was looking at some of the numbers. It sounded like they brought more pressure yesterday, and you can feel them just trying to think through things. Where can people fit? Who can do what well, and trying to work some of that out because they haven't figured out that exact formula yet. And to me, the difficult thing is. Again, I go back to I get the bend but don't break philosophy and making them go 80 yards and not getting big chunks. And, eventually they're going to screw up along the way, or you're going to come up with a big play that's going to make it where they have to punt, maybe a turnover, or maybe you hold them to a field goal. But at the same token, one of two things. One, if you're going to play that defense, you better have a good tackling defense. And the Packers don't. It's not a good tackling defense.
If I see another dude throw his shoulder at a ball carrier,
Kevin King had a bad one yesterday.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Kevin King had a bad one. And then, and then number two, like at some point, you have to be able to start holding the field goals. And when you start allowing 75, 80-yard drives, the worst thing about it, the worst thing that you want right now is that offense off the field for 7-8 minute stretches where they're still getting touchdowns. And I almost feel like you're to the point where, you know what, let's go the opposite direction and let's be ultra aggressive. And you know what, if they go and they score a quick touchdown and you want to get into a shootout with Rodgers and LaFleur, be my guest. Let's do it. Let's party. Let's go shoot out Rodgers, LaFleur versus the best you got. And in the meantime, while we're being aggressive and blitzing the crap out of you and playing man-to-man press and doing all that, we're going to actually get our hands on some footballs, get some sacks, maybe get some turnovers, and set up some easy points as well, and maybe not let special teams get involved as much. That might be a much better way to go at this point.
I couldn't agree more, man. I've been saying that for a month, and I think we started to see some of that against Indy. I think we've definitely seen more press coverage the last couple weeks. There's no question there. But I'm with you, man. It's so blindingly frustrating, especially when Fox throws up that graphic yesterday. The number one team in the league giving up the most points as far as red zone trips go. Like teams are scoring at a 94% clip, and yes, much of that is field goals, but they're still scoring. Yeah. That's the maddening thing. When especially given exactly what you're talking about, the idea of, okay, let it all happen in front of you, make them earn it. Well, they're earning it and they're cashing in.
Still getting touchdowns.
That's driving me insane. Yep. What do you think? What do they have any options at inside backer as far as what they can do to get better elevated play at that position? I know Kirksey is what he is at this point, but I mean, I don't want to say the guy's a liability, but he is so slow and non-explosive. And I know Martin's a rookie and makes a lot of mistakes, but to me, they got to get the kid out there a little bit more.
So my first answer would be, I feel like Vernon Scott has got to be somebody that maybe they try to get a little bit more in that nickel and dime linebacker role. I just think that they don't have necessarily anyone outside of Raven Green that fits that bill outside of Vernon Scott. And I know he's a rookie and I know he's raw, but I've seen enough where I'm intrigued by it and I want to see more of it. And I think that he needs an opportunity to win that because I have a feeling that I know already that Barnes, Kirksey, Martin, Oren Burks and Will Redmond and that group is not it. And and very well could be that Vernon Scott's not it either, but I don't know yet. And I feel like I kind of know with the other group. So and I'm talking nickel dime linebacker here, coverage type linebacker. Right. But I do feel like a major weakness of this team right now is coverage in the middle of the field, especially now that Raven Green is out. I feel like you can target Christian Kirksey, and I feel like that's going to get even worse come the playoffs.
We saw the Lions do that a number of times yesterday.
And when you get Sean Payton, Sean McVay, and some of those teams, and I don't think Kyle Shannon's going to be there, but some of those teams in the NFC that are going to be trying to pick that apart. Hopefully Andy Reid in the Super Bowl, if that's the case, those guys are going to pick apart Christian Kirksey. Chandon Sullivan has struggled in the slot in some of those situations, and now you're talking about with the Will Redmonds, and if you're getting Kamal Martin, Chris Barnes in the field, there's just a huge middle of the field that you can target in so many different ways. And to me, you've got to try something else, whether that's dropping a Darnell Savage or an Adrian Amos to play that position and maybe have Will Redmond play the deep a little bit more. Okay, maybe you can get by there. They won a Super Bowl with Charlie Pepra at safety. I feel like they could maybe get one with Will Redmond. Those are some opportunities that I think they just have to try some different things because I'm not sure with what they have right now is going to work, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, it is. It's like a train that you can see coming, right? Some of these offenses that you're mentioning, and it's like, on the one hand, it's like, okay, you got to go week to week, and I understand. Like, there's probably a lot that Pettin is still capable of kind of bringing out that he hasn't utilized yet. We know he's got, probably 3 playbooks full of stuff that he may be getting to eventually, but to your point, yeah, you think about some of these offensive minds and how they're going to attack everybody in the middle. I mean, everybody. Whether it's Barnes, I thought was really up and down yesterday. We saw Kamal again, really explosive, but yeah, just sometimes some false steps, getting him out of position. And look, the defensive front is at least holding up. Now, they've played some poor offenses, but I think that was a pretty legit offense that they played yesterday. And while they didn't get a ton of kind of the kind of pressure they were getting against Philly, where the pocket really constricts and the quarterback has nowhere to go. I think Stafford's obviously really good about knowing where to go with the football. Yeah. You did see flashes. Kenny Clark got in there. Dean Lowry got a sack, for God's sakes. Rashawn Gary went around 2 dudes to go get a sack. So if they can still get that timely pressure, it's going to make up for a lot of that stuff on the back end. The problem is like Rashawn Gary's sack is a perfect example. That's on a 3rd and 18 where he can pin his ears back, and Stafford is looking to try and push the ball downfield, but there's nothing available. On those downs where things are covered up, the coverage leading to pressure, I think this front can make hay, but I do worry about like quick releases and things out to the flats and guys in space and
all of it.
Why am I depressing myself? Let's talk about something even more depressing. Let's talk about the special teams. First of all, we'll talk about the good part. Come on, Mason Crosby. Are you kidding me? Like it's nothing. Like candy from a baby. It's crazy to me too how like we all trust him implicitly. He gets out there like more often than not. I'm not holding my breath, that's for sure. Right. But it is funny how he's missed a couple extra points this year, like kind of out of nowhere, just to keep us honest, right? The idea of like, well, anything could happen. So, but it's funny.
He's so smart because he knows he's going to miss a few kicks throughout the course of the season. So he's choosing to miss the ones that are 1 point rather than 3. It's a veteran move by Mason Crosby to make sure, because he knows he's going to have to miss a certain amount to reach his quota of misses for the season. So get him out of the way now, make sure they're extra points, and you're good to go.
And hey, even when he nails a 58-yarder, he's out there on the kickoff and on the very next play making a tackle because the guy is probably the best tackler on teams.
I was mad when they didn't put him out on the hands team because he was the only person I trusted on special teams to come up with the ball, and that was a nightmare in and of itself. But like way too much of a journey. I
will say though, shout out to Tunyon for doing a phenomenal job of getting his backside out of the way so it didn't hit him on that onside kick. I mean, because that came real close. The idea that if he hadn't been aware, it probably does hit him, and then it's Detroit's ball. So at least we didn't have like an Atlanta situation where they gave it that kick up to Dallas. All right, looking ahead, we got a Saturday nighter against the Panthers.
Yeah,
sounds like early weather reports are it's going to be kind of a nasty weather game.
Ooh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, that was last night when I looked. It's like, me, I'm like the night games. Like I want the snow globe. I'm really excited for the snow, awesome. The possibility of some snow. I mean, I haven't picked apart Panthers tape yet, but I get the sense this is probably going to be one of those button it up and kind of, run Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, 15 times each. I hope we see some smash mouth football on Saturday night.
It sounds like it's going to be just the perfect time for Christian McCaffrey to return to the field, of course, because why wouldn't it be? You will see. It sounds like it's still early, but there's preliminary hope that he's going to play because why wouldn't Green Bay want to see CMC and then Derrick Henry back to back? But I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to see those two type of players. Again, if you're getting ready for a stretch run, those are the type of players that you're going to be matching up with in the playoffs. And the more of those type of players that you can get your defense prepared for, like one of two things I kind of want to happen in the remainder of this regular season. Obviously, there's one that I would much prefer, but like either the defense just, realizes, like gets it together, figures it out, and just, closes the season really strong, or they just get, all of a sudden CMC and Derrick Henry run for like 600 yards in 2 weeks, and they have their come to Jesus moment. And they're like, we've got to change something because you'd rather have it now than in the playoffs. Right.
Absolutely.
So I just feel like status quo is you're playing with fire.
You're definitely no doubt.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see if Anthony Rush gets involved. Come on now, we need the big boy up. We need him.
Yeah, I love it. He was up yesterday, right?
He was up. I didn't see him a lot. I haven't gone back to actually, look at the actual snaps.
I looked at the snap counts. I didn't see him on there. So
it's probably. So I was just hanging out on the sideline. Got to get him out there. Got him. Eating space next to Kenny. Talking Packers, talking football as I do every week. It's always a joy. Andy, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Can't wait to do it next week. Hopefully a victory Monday after Saturday. Is that a thing?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, deal.